Real full-on racism at an atheist convention. We. Hi everybody, I've been asked to do videos and make comments about the racism at the American Atheists Convention the past weekend. Normally I wouldn't do a video about American atheists because I'm trying to move past that. I'm trying to get beyond it, but there was an incident at the American Atheists Convention that a lot of people are talking about, and it's a repugnant one. My former friend, Mandisa Thomas, an intelligent and competent person, got up on stage and started spewing the vapid wokeist shit, the stereotypical vapid wokeist shit. If you're white and black people are talking about race, you're not allowed to put your information in. You're not allowed to jump into the conversation. Keep your opinions to yourself. That kind of stuff. All whites are racist. Blah blah blah. And you know. It's disgusting. It was really disgusting to see that slide in the first place. It's really disgraceful, frankly, to see that coming out of Mandisa. Mandisa's a competent person. She's been doing this for 10 years. And, I started thinking about, when I was doing this video, I was trying to think about, what exactly I'm going to say as far as what Mandisa's doing. It didn't used to be that way. She didn't used to be racist. She didn't used to spew racism. She didn't used to do that. So what's she doing now? I started looking at some numbers and I started realizing some things. She has been the president of Black Nonbelievers for 10 years. 2012. That was right around the Reason Rally time when I gave them a free table at the Reason Rally because I'm racist. And she's been growing this organization ever since. And she's been going from organization to organization, from convention to convention to convention, saying that we're not doing enough to bring in the black atheist. She's been doing the same drum for 10 years. You're not doing enough. You need to do more. I started thinking when I was doing this video exactly what that means. And now that she's gone further, she said, you're racist if you're not doing more. You're racist, she said, if you're not donating to black organizations. You're racist if you argue race with a black person, which is what I'm doing now, which is apparently racist, which is vapid shit that's beneath her. And I was thinking, why would she go so vapid? Why would she go that way? And I started thinking that she's been doing this for 10 years. 10 years. And what has she got to show for it? She's got 6,000 Twitter followers after 10 years worth of work. Atheists for Liberty, run by the 23-year-old Thomas Sheedy, has about 2 years in operation. They're going after the supposedly tiny Republican atheist market, and they've got 5,000 Twitter followers, 5,100, to Black Nonbelievers, 6,700, after 10 years. Now, if Mandisa was right, if her narrative was right, and the whitey was holding back the African American, they were just shoving African Americans away, or doing anything to push back, not doing enough, well, that would show in one very specific way. That would show in a huge Twitter following for Black Nonbelievers. If there were a demand for Black Nonbelievers, the Twitter following would be in the tens or hundreds of thousands after 10 years. 10 years as an activist, going from show to show, convention to convention, giving speech after speech, each speech saying, you're not doing enough, you need to get more black people in here. What if that's not a problem? What if the problem with the dearth of black people in the atheist movement is exactly the same as the problem of the dearth of Asians in the atheist movement? There are lots of Asians, and by and large, they are much more likely to be atheists. But there's a dearth of them in the atheist movement, far fewer than there are African Americans, I think. Is that white oppression too? Is that us not doing enough? Is that everybody else's fault but the Asians? It's not. It's free people making free decisions, and it's understanding that it's not about race, it's about culture, and cultures are different. And the Asian race has a few different cultures that have pretty good commonalities. The Japanese culture, the South Korean culture, the Chinese culture are all very work intensive. They all have they're all pretty anti-religious. And guess what? They all kind of don't feed into people in those cultures wanting to join atheist organizations. It's not white oppression that the Asians aren't in the atheist movement. It's just a fact of life. And I think we have to admit that it's also just a fact of life that the African American population has those same features, whatever they are. And that it's not whitey that's holding them back. It's them holding themselves back because they want to. Because they can't even be bothered to follow Black Nonbelievers on Twitter. That's how little interest there is. So she's getting up on stage from convention to convention to convention, screaming, "You're racist, and you don't even bother to talk to me. Don't even talk to me about race because your skin is too pale." Here's the scoop, Mandisa. You're about to learn something from me. It's not about race. It's about culture, and you're swimming upstream. And it doesn't look like you're going to succeed ever. Because after 10 years, any cause can get more than 6,700 followers on Twitter. There's no demand. That's the problem. And it's not race-based, it's culture-based. So don't call me a racist, please. It's culture-based, just like the Asian culture. So what I think needs to happen is for Mandisa to sit down and be quiet and listen. I hear a lot of angry African Americans saying, "We're not going to sit down and listen ever again." I've actually never heard them sit down and listen even once. I think it's time you do that. I think it's time you start allowing people to, give you some, little bit of news. You're spinning your wheels. 6,700 followers. If you were a middle-aged white man and you were running a nonprofit organization, and after 10 years you had 6,700 followers, and all you did was go from convention to convention complaining about how small your market is, I'd call you a miserable failure. I mean, I'm sorry, I would. And so one of the things that I think we need to all realize is, so why did Mandisa do this? Why did she do this? Why did she pull race guard? Because she's got nothing else to do. That's why they're doing this. That's why wokeists do this. There's nothing else to say other than people are making their own goddamn decisions on their own time and you don't like it. Other than saying, okay, maybe the African American community has something different about it that makes them not want to join atheist communities like the Asians do. That's not racist. It's true. And it completely negates the need for Black nonbelievers, frankly. Which, I mean, because Black nonbelievers is formed on the idea that they need to be coaxed in, that the blacks need to be pulled into the movement. That was the idea 10 years ago. I was a part of that idea. Well, at least I was a full supporter of that idea. But it's wrong. There's no oppression in atheism. There's nothing anti-black in atheism. And any African American who looks at the audience and doesn't see a lot of black people so they don't join, fuck those people. They're too weak to join anyways. That's not the kind of person that anybody would want in a movement. That's also, I believe, not real. I don't believe it's real. I believe that any African American who wants to go to any place is going to go. And I believe they're not going to see, as much as a disdain as I have for the people running American Atheists, they're not going to see anything anti-black at American Atheists. They're not going to see any bigotry or racism there or at any other movement in the organization. So it's gross what Mandisa put up on the stage. It's gross because she's smarter than that. And it's gross because the movement has become this horrible victimhood narrative inducing mess that just says, okay, well, if we have not enough blacks, if we don't have enough African Americans here, if we don't have equity, it must be the white man's fault. And there's a problem. But it's just people making free decisions and they don't want to join. And so, yeah, Black Nonbelievers doesn't really have a purpose. And that's why Black Nonbelievers has 6,700 followers after 10 fucking years as a nonprofit organization. So maybe moving forward, Mandisa and people like her can shut up and listen and can stop being all blowhardy and can stop being all pompy and bigoted. And yes, you can learn, you can listen, and you can grow. You can improve. by listening to people who aren't black. And so I think it's time we all just realize that it's time for Black Nonbelievers to pivot. I think going to atheist organizations and calling out white people for the dearth of black people in the atheist movement has been going on for 10 years. It's a complete failure. Okay? You're sounding racist, you're not succeeding, and you've got 6,700 followers after 10 years, which is ridiculous. And in 10 years, the amount of black people in the atheist movement has not substantially increased at all, Mandisa. So I think what needs to happen is, instead of going out to the atheist orgs and complaining that we're not recruiting enough, I think it's your job to do the recruiting. I think you need to stop going to the atheist organizations and start going to the mainly black events. I know you've done a few of those, but that should be your only thing to do. And bring in some people into the atheist movement. Now, if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but I think your only other option is to just call it, because it's not that there's a cultural thing inside the African American culture that just makes them not wanna. And that's not broken. It's not terrible. The fact that they are not joining, the fact that there's inequity, or that the number of black people in the atheist movement isn't satisfactory to you, may just be your problem. It may not be evidence of bigotry. It may just mean it's not enough for you. And I think that's what's happening. And I think Mandisa has had a really good run of going from convention to convention on members' dimes, having parties. Good job. I think you have not succeeded at all in 10 years. And I think you either need to change or pack it up and stop being such a racist. Bye.